Noswaith dda I chi gyd. Chroeso I sesiynau adolygu Carlam Cymru. Good evening, welcome to Carlam Cymru revision sessions for this year. This session will focus on Welsh second language A-level and will be presented by Miss Childs from Mountain Ash Comprehensive School. The session will last around 45 minutes, where the teacher will go through the relevant subject content. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A section, and we will try to answer your questions during the session. The session will be recorded with the recording and any relevant resources uploaded to the e-sgol website in the Carlam Cymru area. Croeso, Miss Childs, draw at ti.
Okay, prynawn da pawb, and welcome to the Welsh second language A-level session. So croeso I bawb. So today we are looking at the Unit 6 section of our exams. The Section B section will be focusing on the grammar techniques. And remember, grammar is the foundation of all the course as well. So you can apply these skills to the speaking and also Unit 5 or Unit 6, because remember, a lot of the marks throughout the course are based on the accuracy of your language. So we need to perfect our skills in order to get the higher marks in all aspects of the paper. So today we're going to revise some key question words, because as you know already, all of the questions are only, and then we're going to attempt a Unit 6 grammar task. Then we're going to revise the difference between the first and the third person, and again apply that to a 10-mark Unit 6 grammar task. Then we're going to revise the imperfect past tense, where we'll be able to correct verb forms in the irregular past tense. And finally, we are going to revise the difference between singular and plural phrases, and finally answer a past paper question in your Unit 6 tasks. Okay, so this is directly from the exam board. So in your Unit 6 exam, you could have a 10-mark question based on any of the following. So it could be based on changing the tense of verbs. So it could ask you to switch from the amser presennol, the present tense, to the amser gorffennol, or they could be asking maybe to switch from the amser dyfodol, the future tense, to the amser presennol. Okay. Then they could also potentially ask about the person of the verb. So they might ask you to switch from the first person I to the third person, maybe he or she. They may also ask you to switch in patterns from singular to plural, which we'll be going through our session today. They could also ask you about some sort of task about correcting verbs in a sentence, or potentially any similar words. For example, gwybod or adnabod. So gwybod to know a fact, adnabod to know a person. So it's a bit like 2, 2 and 2 in Welsh, in English. And remember, these work for 10 marks. They could ask you a question about any of these here. They could ask maybe a 4-mark question and then a 6-mark question if they wanted to, or they might put all of them all together in 10 marks. Okay, so your first task today, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to cyfieithwch y patrymau I Saesneg, to translate these patterns into English. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to translate these into English. The reason why we're going through these today is because a lot of the questions are Welsh only. So if you don't know these key phrases, for example, person cyntaf, then you wouldn't be able to access the question. Remember, you can type in the chat if you need any help with anything, or if you have any questions. So if we say 2 funud, 2 more minutes, just to translate these into English. Okay, so we just had a question in the chat. It asked, beth ydy trydydd person? So what's the third trydydd person in English? So that is the third person. So if the trydydd person is the third person, have a think, what's the person cyntaf? Think of dates. Then we have the ail person. Clywosog. Unigol. I like to think of unig blentyn, ydw i. I am an only child, so that could give you a clue there. Okay, if we say un fan hyn now, remember if you finish, the extension is to show examples of patterns in the person cyntaf, ail person and trydydd person. Okay, then you have the person cyntaf unigol, person cyntaf lluosog. Newidiwch, you should recognise from GCSE. Remember, command word or an imperative instruction word will always end in WCH. Byrddau or bydd. Tanlinelli, a clue to remember this is always line in there. Cromfachau is quite a difficult word to remember. It did come up 1 year in one of the past papers, so we do really need to know this when we go through the answers. And finally, you have a ffurf gywir. Okay, so remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything or if you have any questions. Okay, so if we go dros the atebion, so person cyntaf is first person. Feel free to type in any answers in the chat. Trydydd person is third person. Ail person, second person. So remember, the examiner could ask you to switch from the first to the third person. If you did not know what person cyntaf or trydydd person was, then you would lose marks in the exam, and 10 marks are vital in order to get your target grades. Lluosog is plural. Unigol is singular. I always think unig blentyn ydw i. I am an only child, so only is just one. And then I always think of two L's of two people, so plural is more than one. And then if we join it all together, we have person cyntaf, first person, unigol, which is singular, so first person singular. Person cyntaf lluosog is first person plural. Newidwch, which you should have saw in maybe GCSE, is changed, so they may actually just change or switch from the first or third person. Berf is verb, so they might ask you to correct the verb form. Tanlinelli is to underline, okay? And always think the word line is in Tanlinelli, which is to underline. Cromfachau, can anyone type in the chat if they know the word cromfachau? Okay, da iawn. Someone managed to get that correct, ardderchog. Cromfachau is brackets, so they might ask you to correct or switch, correct the verb forms in brackets. Ffurf gywir is correct form, so you might have to correct the form of the verbs. Don't panic too much about these because we will be going through some of the questions today and hopefully you recognise them. So give yourself a mark mas or undigdau. Da iawn, I can see some people in the chat has managed to get undigdau mas o undigdau. Da iawn, ardderchog, that's really impressive. So we're going to move on now to switch in between different person in Welsh. So just to remind you, person cyntaf is about ourselves, the first person. So you're always talking about yourself. The ail person, second person, is more you. So talking about maybe two people. Then the trydydd person is talking about our friend. So that's he, she, and someone's name. Okay? And remember, you can have different person in different tenses. So the examiner could be quite horrible and ask you to switch between the first and the third person in different tenses. So it may not always be the present tense here. So they might ask you to maybe switch hoffwn I would like, to the third person, trydydd person, so hoffai Tom or hoffai and someone's name. So if we have a look now at the next task, I have some patterns in different tenses and I want you to decide if these are the person cyntaf or the trydydd person. So I want you to aildrefnwch, rearrange a pattern rearrange the patterns to what is the first and the third person. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes in order to put these into the correct categories. So AC, is that the first person cyntaf, first person, or trydydd person? Remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. So es i'r un parc. Roedd ein, is that the first person I, or is that the trydydd person he, she, or Tom? Teithiodd hi, is that I travelled? Is that he, she, or Tom travelled? Okay, if we say dive in now, 2 more minutes. Bydda I, is that I will be? Or is it he, she, or maybe Tom will be? Gyda fe, is that the person cyntaf? Or is it the trydydd person? Remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. And remember, once you've finished, can you think of any first and third person patterns in different tenses? Remember, these are just a few, but the exam board would expect you to know a lot more. Remember, you're building on from GCSE and also Year 12 last year. Cafodd Jack, is that the trydydd person or is that the person cyntaf? Arhosodd hi, is that the person cyntaf or trydydd person? Hoffwn ni, is that I would like, or maybe he, she, or Tom would like? If we say un funud now, 1 more minute. Fydd e ddim yn, have a think, is that the person cyntaf or trydydd person? And if you notice, they could be very challenging and ask you to maybe switch in the negative tense as well. And then finally, dylwn ni, is that I should, or she, he, or Tom should. Okay, so if we go dros the atebion, remember, type in the chat and share any answers. So in the person cyntaf, remember the first person cyntaf is the first person, so it's always I. So AC means I went, so that's the first person. Bydda un, I will, or I will be. Gyda fe is with am I, so gyda fy mam. Hoffwn ni, I would like. Dylwn ni, I would like. Okay, so the exam board might give you some of these in a paragraph or maybe a letter and expect you to switch these to the third person. So they expect you to know maybe I, Tom, for example, or they might give you the opposite. Then if we have a look at the third person, roedd ein, he was. Teithiodd hi, she was. She travelled. Cafodd Jack, Jack had. Arhosodd hi, she stayed. And fydd e ddim yn. You need to be careful with the trydydd person because they might not be very clear about whether they want you to change it to benyweidd or gwryweidd, feminine or masculine. So sometimes you need to watch out for the name in the text. So if it's someone called maybe Jack, Jack generally identifies themselves as male. So you would be expected to change everything to gwryweidd, masculine. So roedd ein, mae ein, and so forth. Or you could sit on the fence and just stick to maybe Jack in the exam. Okay, so Diane, I can see a lot of people in the chat has managed to get dig mas o dig o ddechog. That's brilliant to see. Okay, so we are now going to attempt our first past paper question. As you can see, the questions are in Welsh only. So this is why we've gone through a lot of the keywords at the beginning of the task. So remember, these questions are at a dig mark, 10 marks. So they might split up the question. They can ask any question that they want to on any of the bullet points that we've covered. So my brother ik friend, my brother's friend sy'n 12 oed, is 12 years old. Wedi cael 2 darn o waith cartref, has had 2 pieces of Welsh homework am y pwnc o gwyliau about the subject holidays gan yr athro Cymraeg. Mae hi wedi gofyn I chi am help. The teacher has asked you for help. And this is the main bit that we need to be looking at. Mae'n rhaid i chi newid, we've seen this word before, you have to change y darn, the piece, o trydydd person i'r person cyntaf. So from the third person to the first person. So if you did not know what these phrases meant, you would automatically lose marks in the exam because we wouldn't understand the question. Another thing that we need to watch out for, as I've said already, is the gender. Okay, so if they asked you to change from the first to the third person, you'd have to have a look at in your piece, are they talking about a male or a female person in the text? Okay, so your task now, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to switch these phrases from the third to the first person. Remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. So if you have a look at the first one here, Aeth A is he went, and we need to change that to I went. We had that earlier in the table. The easiest way to think about this is maybe think of the English first and then think, what do you need to change it to? Then you got Gydai daily with his family, and you need to switch that to with my family. Then you have Teithiodd A, he travels, and we need to switch that to I travelled. And if you notice, everything is numbers, so it's a bit nicer than GCSE, where they could potentially number these in the exam. Then you have Arhosodd A, he stayed, so you need to change that to I stayed. So if we say 2 munud now, 2 more minutes, then you have roedd ein, he was or it was, and we need to change it to I was. Cafodd e, he had, we need to change it to I had. Then you have hoffai e, and he would like, so we need to change that to I would like. Dylai e, he should, we need to change that to I should. So if we say un munud now, 1 more minute, bydd ein, he will be or he will, and we need to change that to I will be. And finally, if we have a look here, bydd ei ddim yn, we need I will not be, we need to change it to I will not be. In the exam, these today are mainly looking at maybe different tenses. It's nothing stopping them from putting maybe prepositions in there. So for example, giving you on fe, on him, and you'd have to change it to on me, for example. Okay, so if we go dros the atebion, remember, type in the chat if you want to share your answers. So Aeth A, we changed to AC, I went. Gyda I is with my. Teithiais I is I travelled. Then we have Arhosais I stayed for rhy pedwar. Roedd yn un, again going to the conditional tense, imperfect tense, I was. Ces I had for rhy chwech. Hoffai e changes to hoffwn i. Dylai e is dylan i. Bydd ein is bydda un, and which is I will be, and bydda I ddim yn is I will not be. One other thing to watch out for is apostrophe ends, okay? So if you think in the past tense, there is no n in the past tense after phrases, past tense phrases. So we would just say teithiodd e there, and there's no n, apostrophe n. So that would mean is no apostrophe n in the answer, teithiais I. But if we look at roedd ein, there would be an apostrophe n after the verb here, so you'd expect that to be in the answer. Okay, if you wrote down teithiais un, apostrophe n on the end, the exam board would mark it incorrect. Okay, another thing to watch out for is formal and informal as well in your answers as well. So now we're going to move on to the next part of our session, which is looking at correcting the verb forms. Okay, so in order to do this question today, we are going to correct the verb forms in the burfau avreolaidd, the irregular past tense. The exam board may set a question on any of the other tenses. They might want to mix up the tenses in the question. They might stick to one tense. It depends how challenging they want to be on the day. So just to remind you, this is the imperfect tense. Hopefully you've seen this tense since GCSE. So remember, there are four main phrases of the irregular past tense. Mynd in the past tense is es I went, est you went, informal. Aeth e or haeth he or she went. Aethon ni, we went. Aethoch chi, you went, which is the formal. And aethon nhw, they went. Okay, so the easiest way to revise these patterns is to remember the AC patterns, mynd in the irregular past tense, and then add on d for I came, you came, he came, and so forth. Add on a GWN for I did, you did, or make, and so forth. And if you want to make it I had, add on an ek, a C to the patterns. Okay, and the only patterns which don't follow these examples or these patterns is these few here. So if you think of what's cheese in Welsh is caws. Okay, so all of these follow the same pattern, just add on a letter at the beginning, or three in this case here. Okay, so if we move on to our next past paper question, as you can see, is in Welsh again. Today is only out of 8 marks, but remember in the exam it would be hopefully marks a deg out of 10. So it says, mae rhaid i chi, you must ysgrifennu verb cywir y verb, so the correct verb form sy'n mewn cronfachau. Okay, so a similar question came up a few years ago, and a lot of people were thrown because of the way, first of all, the way it's laid out, and also they did not know what cronfachau brackets were, and that threw a lot of candidates. Okay, so if we have a look at the question, it's got verbs in brackets, and it has different letters following it. Okay, so your task, you need to put rewrite the verbs in the correct form. Okay, so that means you need to create a verb according to its tense. Okay, the tense today is irregular past tense. The exam board may ask you to correct verb forms or rewrite the verbs in different tenses. So if we have a look at an example together, you have Kyle and I. Okay, so you need to create a form of a verb in the irregular past tense. So you need to say, I had. Okay, can anyone type in the chat, what does I had mean in Welsh? What's I had? Okay, Diane, someone's just typed in the chat, case E. So we'd write down case E. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to correct these verbs and put them in the correct form. So you need to rewrite these out in the irregular past tense. I'll talk you through this. It does take a while to get your head around it. So mynd I, so you need to change that to the regular past tense, I went. Kyle ni is just a mutation there because it's after a in Welsh, so it causes the aspirate mutation. So we need we had, so we had. Gwneud a mam, so you have to change that to mam made. Cael hi, which is she had. Again, that's a treigl llais again, needs aspirate mutation. Dod ni, we need to change that to we came. Okay, if we say dive in now, 2 more minutes. Gwneud I, we need to change that to I did. Then we have mynd ni. We need to change that to we went. Okay, so it's getting your head around what verb we need to change it to in different tenses, and it needs to, again, to be in the correct form. And remember, the extension, once you've finished, is to translate the text into English. Okay, so remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. Okay, you could also read some of the sentences to try and get your head around what you need to write down. So, yn y nos, in the night, something fun. And you'd have to think what verb would make sense to make it, make the sentence make sense. So would it be, I would like fun in the night, I would like fun? Is it, I had fun? Is it, it was fun? And remember, the words in the phrases in brackets also gives you a clue about what you need to structure your verb in the past tense or different tenses. Okay, so if we go drostio atebion eto, so Kyle, you need to change to I had. So first one, ticioch, Casey. AC, so I went. Chawson so remember, usually it is Chawson, but it's Chawson today, just because of the aspirate mutation there. Gwynaeth mam, mam made. Cafodd he, she had. Daethon ni, we went, or we came. Gwnes I, I did. And aethon ni. So the exam board on the day, again, could expect you to change or correct the verb forms in different tenses. So they might give hoff and maybe put I in next to it to expect you to know hoff and e. They might give you, for example, bydd and maybe he next to it and expect you to know that is bydd he. Okay, so remember, type in the chat a certain amount of marks out of dig. Ardderchog, I can see that a lot of you are achieving 8 out of 8. So now, we're going to move on to our next section, which is switching from the plural to the singular. Can anyone remind me and type in the chat the words for plural and singular in Gymraeg? Can anyone remember? Oh, da iawn, Ardderchog. I can see someone has just typed in the chat. Unigol is the word for singular. So always think unig blentyn ydw i. And llywosog is plural. Ardderchog, da iawn. So this is hopefully a good revision table for you to use for revision in preparation for the exam. So these phrases here on the left-hand side are the person cyntaf unigol. Can anyone type in the chat, what does person cyntaf unigol mean? Person cyntaf unigol. Ardderchog, da iawn. So it means the first person singular. And the person cyntaf llywosog, can anyone tell me what that means? Ardderchog, first person plural. At the moment, in the exam, they have put in brackets vi and ni. So if you forget some of the words or key terms in the exam, you might hopefully juggle your memory a bit, and you might think, oh, that's about myself, and that's about we, us. Okay, so here's just some examples of the first and the third person in different tenses. So remember, rydw is I am. Okay, you might see roefen, the formal version, or dwi'n, the more condensed version, I am. Rydyn ni is we are, the plural. Dydw i ddim yn, I am not. And again, the plural would be dydyn ni ddim yn, we are not. If you look at the past tense, I see, tends to be on the end of regular past tense tense is I singular, or ni is the plural for we. AC, we've seen this before, the irregular past tense is I went, aethon ni, we is the plural. Roeddwn ni'n, I was, roeddwn ni, we were. And then we have the negative, so doedd ni ddim yn, and doeddwn ni ddim yn, and doeddwn ni ddim yn. Then we have the future tense, amser dyfodol, bydde un, I will be, a byddwn ni, we will be. Then you have the amser model, the conditional tense. So dylen ni, I should, gallwn ni, I could, hoffwn ni, I would like. And then you have the few here in the llywosog. Dylen ni, gallwn ni, and hoffwn ni. So remember, they may not expect you to switch from the first to the third person with just tenses. They might throw in maybe adroddiad, prepositions, instead of ata fi to me, after ni to us. Then you have board patterns they could throw in. Instead of a modine, that I am, they'd expect you to know that we are. The, my, they'd expect you to know what maybe our is as well. So they wouldn't just stick to verbs in different tenses. There's other phrases that they would throw in, that they could throw in and ask you to switch about in Welsh. Okay, so remember, type in the chat if you have any questions. So if we have a look at our next question, okay, so my choir friend, my sister's friend, sy'n 12 oed. So my sister's friend is 12 years old, wedi cael 2 waith o gwaith cartref am y banc amser gorffennol. So it has 2 pieces of homework about about leisure time, gan yr athrawes Cymraeg, about the Welsh teacher, by the Welsh teacher. Mae hi wedi gofyn I chi am help. She's asked you for help. So this is your task now. Mae rhaid I chi, you must, we've seen the word newid before, change, to change or to switch, i'r dan o'r person cyntaf unigol, from the first person singular, which is I, i'r person cyntaf llywosog, to the first person plural, which is we. Okay, and again, all of these are numbered, and the phrases are in different tenses. You have some prepositions in there. Okay, so your task now, you need to switch these phrases from the first person I to we in different tenses. And if you have a look, you would have to switch in different tenses as well. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to switch these phrases from the first person singular to the third person plural. So chwaraeais is I played, and you need to switch that to we played. So remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. Then you have gyda fy, with my. So you need to switch that with our. Sometimes it's easier to think about it, think of the English first and then translate it. Some of you might automatically think, that's the first person ending, what's the third person? Not third person, second person ending. Doedd ni ddim yn, which is I wasn't, and we need to change that to we weren't. And remember, be careful of your ends. If it's ends in the phrases, then you need it in the answer. The past tense here is no n, apostrophe n, so we don't need it in the answer. Whereas this one here, they'd expect you to put the n in the answer. Then again, you have gyda fi, my something gyda fi. How do you change that to we have got? Okay, they may be very mean on the day and give you a formal version, my geni, so fervial, but today it's anfervial, informal, my something gyda fi. Okay, so if we say 2 munud now, 2 more minutes. Okay, so nesa, bydda un, I will be, and we need to newidwch, change to we will be. Then you have hoffni, I would like, and we need to switch that to we would like. Then you've been given quite a formal version. You should have seen this maybe in some poetry. So roiv wedi. Can anyone type in the chat what's the informal version of roiv? Can you type in the chat for me? Informal. Can anyone think of an informal version of roiv? Diane, I can see in the chat that someone's typed in rydw or dwi'n, okay? So roiv is more, say, formal language, more academic. So when some of you study maybe Welsh at university, you might want to write an essay and use roiven. And rydw a dwi'n is more informal Welsh, which is what we use in our general day-to-day conversations. And again, be careful for n after the phrases. No, there's no and here. Remember, the reason for that, there's never, ever, ever n before wedi or eisiau in Welsh. So that's why there's no n there. Okay, so if we say un funud now, 1 more minute. Okay, so the next one is got the waith cartref. So we'd have to change that to our. Okay, the our homework. Then you have rydw. So instead of I am writing, you'd have to change that to we are writing. And again, be careful of your apostrophe ends. Remember, if you're finishing now, remember we have extension tasks on the slide, which is to translate this piece of text into English. And finally, here is a adroddiad, a preposition, Anna E. Write an email to me, and you have to change it about me to us instead. Okay, so remember un funud. And remember some tips in the exam. Maybe you might want to work out the ones you know first. If you're struggling, don't leave it blank, you could guess. Or remember, there could be words or phrases that jog your memory in the paper. So when it comes to the end of the exam, maybe there could be a word or phrase in there that could jog your memory, because after this, remember, in this paper you have a short story, maybe an extract from the short story might have some of the phrases if you're really lucky, or when you write in before this section, you'll also have writing an extended piece of writing, maybe an article, a blog, and again, by maybe writing yourself, it could hopefully come back to you on the day of the exam. Okay, but remember the key things to these type of questions, you need to know the key instruction words, what maybe person cyntaf yn e-sgol is, person cyntaf llywosog, in order to understand what the task is. Okay, so if we mynd dros the atebion, go through the answers. Remember, type in the chat to share your answers. So instead of chwaraeais I played, we would change that to chwaraeoni, we played. Instead of gyda fy, we would say gydag ein, so with our. Doeddwn ni ddim yn, we weren't, and remember there's n here, so we'd need to put that in the answer. Some people easily lose marks just because they put apostrophe n, so they've got the rest correct, but for some reason they want to put apostrophe n, or if you forgot the n there, you would lose the mark because it's not the correct phrase. Okay, so for pedwar, we got the answer dyfodol. So you have my something gyda ni. So we have got, again, there's nothing stopping them from putting in my geni instead, and you'd have to know my gendyn ni. Byddwn un, this is the answer dyfodol, byddwn nhw, we will be. Hoffwn ni, and again, there is no n there, we would like. Rydyn ni is we would like, and remember they could throw in the formal versions of words, the ffurfiol. Then we have ein, our, instead of my. Rydwin changes to Rydyn. And Arna-ni changes from Arna-e. So remember, we need to be revising prepositions as well. And the questions today, they've asked you to switch from the first person plural to the second person. They could do it the other way around. So there's nothing stopping the examiner from changing it up a bit in the exam. So Diane, I can see some people typing in the chat again that they've managed to get dig out of dig. So that's really impressive for our first session as well. Okay, so we are coming towards the end of our session, but just to remind you, the WJC has created a lot of blended learning resources at the moment where you can use resources at your own pace in order to revise as well. So if you click these links at the end of the session, you can revise specifically on grammatics. So you can do some grammar practices there to revise. They also have some revision on Traws-saethu, which we'll be going over next week. And also Crash, a lot of you, your speaking exams are coming up. And also there's some resources for year 12s as well. We will be doing a session on the synoptic. So a lot of the grammar, a lot of the resources that we covered last year in year 12 will be relevant. So you can also revise those as well. Word Wall, hopefully some of you have managed to play Word Wall in the past, is a revision game where you can revise vocab at your own pace. So it's more interesting than revising maybe cue cards, and a lot of people revise easily through playing games, and is more interactive for you. So the first revision game I've given you is verb tenses. So it's to revise the different verbs in different tenses, and that will help, especially with the first question where we had to switch from the first to the third person in different tenses there. Okay, then the next link that I put up is again changing person. So remember, they might ask you to switch from the first to the third person. There's nothing stopping them from switching to the second person as well in different tenses. And another one that I've put up is correcting verbs, so correcting the verb form. That was the most challenging question which we went over, which was the second one here. Okay, where you have to rewrite the verbs, in our case was in the irregular past tense. They could be quite mean, and also switch to different tenses. So does anyone have any questions about the session today? Remember, type in the chat if you have any questions. Okay, I can't see any questions at the moment. So remember, our next session next week will be on Monday, the 14th of March, the 14th of March, and every session starts from 6:15 to 7. Next week, we will be going over Traws-saethu, which is translanguaging, which is on your unit 5 exam. So hopefully that'll be useful for that exam as well. Remember, you can also watch the sessions back. So if you want to come back closer to the exams, go back to revision. Remember, it is all on the e-sgol website, and the link below is also to the session next week. So diolch yn fawr, and hopefully I'll see you next week.